Autonomous self-driving vehicles are going to change the future of terminal transportation and moving goods. I'm interested that during this session, the most of the interest was actually about this. This is happening in Europe, in Asia, and there are lots of trials going on. This is a small part of our fleet that we are developing. They are 60-foot long container trucks turned to robots. COVID, as we all know, brought the global supply chain to its knees. This is $500 billion worth of goods sitting in the waters outside Singapore, going nowhere. Terminal operators have challenges to increase margin, and they're embracing technology. Autonomy will change the world. It will turn everything that we move into being moved by robots. That's going to take longer for people, but ports and terminals are the best value prop for this technology. And so there are skilled driver shortages. As you know, in the US, we're about 80 or 90,000 professional drivers down. In Japan, the average age of a professional driver is 58 years old. Costs are high, it's expensive to train those drivers. They are dangerous places. Every day, people drive off into the sea. They get hurt, containers hit them, and productivity has to be optimized. This is the most important slide I'm going to show you. We can operate those 60-foot long robots. They're articulated with a tug and a trailer. We can operate that truck with a positional accuracy on the ground of 2 centimeters. That 60-foot truck can park, and it can drive down the center line of a road to 2 centimeter accuracy. I'm from Boston. I can't even park my car to within 10 centimeters. And we can use fancy technology to park this thing. This video moves quickly, and I'll show it to you. But first, autonomous vehicles, our customers tell us they're going to save 60% of human capital operations costs. The vehicle starts off, it sees the road markings, takes a protected left turn. Here it is, it's driving through the port. You can see there's no one in the cab. It sees the stop line, and just as you or I would do, it waits for the traffic to find a hole in the traffic. There it goes, taking a right turn, driving through the port. Takes a protected left turn. It's going to turn into the working lane to get loaded. There it goes. You can see the crane coming up. Watch this. Wait. There. That's the 2 centimeter accuracy correction for the vehicle. Waiting for the crane to arrive. Here it comes. Look in here into the rear view mirror, and you will see the red container come down that mirror, and that will tell us it's there. The robot needs to know that that container is seated properly so it doesn't fall off and hurt somebody. And then it needs to know everything's safe. Now it's moving again. It's navigating entirely by itself through the port. It knows how to get there, and it knows the rules. It stops because it sees a suspended load. It can't move when that load is there. You can see the spreader come up. It needs to know then not to go until it's safe. There it goes. It sees it moving into the working lane again. Let's look for that 2 centimeter accuracy correction. There it is. So we move it so that it really aligns to 2 to 5 centimeters. Waiting for the crane to arrive. There it comes in. And again, look in the rear view mirror, and you'll see the container come up. You see all these other trucks, they don't even know this is a robot. So the container came up. You can see it now. So the robot has to go back to where it came from. It sees the stop line, it knows it needs to stop. Now it's navigating again by itself through the port. Here's the wharf area. You can see the ship getting unloaded. We can unload, we can take those containers as well. This is the busiest road in the port. We didn't want the vehicle on there at this time, but it optimized the roads, optimized its path. And so now it's going through, completely navigating by itself. This is true autonomy. It's waiting again for traffic, so it can see that. We see to 350 meters. There we go. It stops. Why? It sees the threat of that other prime mover that's there. It knew that that didn't belong there, and it was right that it was a threat. So there it goes, again, navigating. It sees the zebra crossing. We can see those road markings, and now it comes back to rest. So that's a demonstration for you of what these robots can actually do. And there's nuance in the software. We say that we have made success by standing on the shoulders of port giants, because all of our colleagues tell us the details of how to operate in a port, and we turn them into algorithms. So again, this disruptive technology translates to disruptive economics. Autonomy is going to wipe out industries, and it's going to change them. It will take 60% of the vehicles off the roads, because the robots operate 24/7. They don't sleep. They don't take lunch breaks. Our customers and our numbers suggest that customers will save 60% when they go to a human capital ops costs, when they go to an autonomous system. Here you see the three components of a system that if you have to implement it, and these are independent components. The first one's obviously the hardware. The hardware, we take a normal truck and we do a conversion process. We retrofit it. It's a kludgy process. 10 years from now, for sure, we won't be doing this. What we really want is to buy OEM production-grade vehicles that are autonomy ready. They have sensors to do the job that they have to do. So that's coming, but right now, most of these trucks are converted by most everyone. In addition, there's a very sophisticated autonomy layer. This software costs somewhere about $50 to $100 million to develop eventually. It's very sophisticated software. There aren't a lot of guys who know how to do it. Autonomy was invented in 2010 at MIT. And then in addition, we have an on-demand remote operators. It's not classic. It's only when the robot needs help. So those are the components of the system. Here we go. I'm asked a lot, what are the steps by which to create an autonomous system? So I thought I would explain it to you. Here's the vehicle, as I mentioned. It's again a tug trailer. It's got a joint, obviously you all know this, where they're put together. And so the movement of the vehicle is very important. We model these trucks in terms of the motion dynamics. So we know where the weight is when that vehicle takes turns. This is a picture of the top, the top of the cab. This is a box of wires and connections because we have to get rid of the steering wheel, the brake, and the accelerator, and replace it with this kind of electronics so that the vehicle can take commands from a computer. So it's here, it's also under the seat. And then in addition, we have to map. This is a lot of work because it turns out that for the robot, each square meter is a new place for the robot. The robots can't generalize. So you have to map very carefully here. Then we install the software. That's the simple part, not the writing of it, but the installation is simple. We test, 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 and then eventually we deploy. So that's the process. The conversion process takes, at the shortest, about a month. Some people can do it faster than that, but that takes about that long, and that's the longest part of the process. But you have to know exactly what you're trying to accomplish with your robot. This is a rough diagram of the components of the actual system. We run the autonomy software on the vehicle. Why would we do that? We do it because it's secure. We do not want to risk being hacked with a vehicle that can weigh 80 tons. In addition, we have a cloud layer where we run things like the fleet management, the remote operations, and so forth. And very importantly, as I mentioned, we do a sensor configuration, which is how the robot sees the world. We do a sensor configuration that's for each vehicle and for each application, because each vehicle has its own geometry, and each application requires different specifications. So we use something called LiDAR, laser radar. We also use cameras, we use ultrasound, we use all sorts of different radar sensors to make sure that we have 0 blind spots. 0 blind spots for the robot. And what that means is the modularity of the system means that Venti can turn virtually any vehicle into a robot. We've done wheelchairs, we've done little scooters, and these are the biggest guys we have, these 60-foot long robots. So I thought it would be helpful for any of you who are considering this to think about some of the specific questions you have to ask of an autonomy provider. I have a question for you. Can you see this? In the back, can you see the words? Great. Okay, thank you. So you have to park really closely. We were told that we had to park within 5 centimeters of the crane in order to have automatic loading of the crane. We hit 2. But that's very hard. So that's important to know how to do that. In addition, the signal is so important because we have this on-demand remote ops. And so what the signal does not like is metal and concrete. So you have to build all kinds of backstops into the software so that when it's driving around ports with all this metal and concrete, it doesn't just get lost and go off by itself. So that's one of the problems that has to be solved. Again, you have to have high throughput because if the robot sees each square meter as a new place, you have to be able to do it quickly so that you can map an large environment. Obviously, security is hugely important because of the constraints of not being able to be hacked with these things that can actually become a pretty major issue if they're out of control. And then you need reliable hardware. We need to implement the robots in inclement weather. Those sensors, a lot of them have problems when the weather goes bad. If you have LiDAR, the front of it gets raindrops on it. So we have to figure out how to handle those kind of issues as well in weather. Most importantly, robots are 10,000 times safer than human drivers. And we've seen human drivers do very interesting things. They break the traffic rules. And we think the biggest issue in this whole system is that the robot has to anticipate and react to the human drivers when it's driving in mixed traffic with both humans and robots. It's the humans that are the issue in a situation with humans and robots together. And then finally, these are big guys, right? Those trucks. So if something goes wrong, if it doesn't know what to do, whatever, it can't just continue to drive. It must always do a safe stop. if a component breaks, if something goes on, it has to stop. So these are the kinds of things that are wisdom that we've gained from having developed in systems. But I suggest that if you're interested in it, this is one checklist that you can use. Thank you. And I will say, my colleague Amarjit Kaur, who's one of Singapore's leading lawyers, we were supposed to be doing like a fireside chat thing. So she's here too.
Thank you, Dr. Heidi Weil, for the wonderful, informative session. Join me in thanking Dr. Weil, please. Now, I'm sure there are lots of questions on the back of that presentation, so please feel free to raise your hands and someone will hand you a mic. She's just bringing the mic over.
My name is Kinya Ichimura from Mitsui E&S. So thank you for your presentation. So according to your presentation, so you are retrofitting the existing truck to the autonomous truck. And then so in that case, you can retrofit for the so engine drive, so engine and transmission drive, normal autonomous, normal truck, or you have to use the electrical truck, EV truck?
We can do all trucks. We can do LNG, we can do diesel, we can do electric, we can do all of them.
Okay, thank you.
Look forward to it.
Yeah, I have a question. I assume it's difficult when an autonomous truck meets a manned truck, and you referred to the traffic rules. And I can think that the human guy in the human truck sometimes breaks the traffic rules. How does the autonomous truck react? I would say he's at the end has never a chance because he wants to keep to the traffic rules, whereas the human guy, well, gives a shit on it.
Honestly, we're running tens of vehicles in mixed traffic 24/7 right now. So there are a lot more human drivers in our port than the robots, but we are running tens of them. It's actually not as simple as you said. The humans do sometimes break the traffic rules. We've seen them driving the wrong way on roads. But the worst thing is that they tailgate the robot. And sometimes if the robot stops, the vehicle behind it doesn't have the ability to stop. There are traffic rules about length of following distances, but if the humans don't obey them and the robot stops or slows down suddenly, that can cause an issue. But the robot sees what's around it. We have a core safety layer that no matter what else is going on, we see the objects around us and the robot must stop. The robot can also stop faster than a human because there's nobody in there, right? So it can stop within 2 seconds, but it's a very, very fast stop with a big push. So the robot pretty much, only thing it can do is basically stop in one way or another, either not continue on the path it was on, if it projects that the human will intervene with it, or stop. So really, the humans kind of have to obey the rules if they want to be safe. Did I answer your question? No?
I do not have an issue concerning safety. I have an issue that it could be the case that the robot at the end does not have a chance at a crossing, for example, because always the human driver let him not go. And that may end up that the robot stays and waits and waits and waits.
Oh, I see.
And that is my issue.
Yeah, so I didn't
that is
answer
at
your
the
question.
end, because the robot wants to comply with the rules, and the human being does not want.
Yeah, so I didn't answer your question. So at a junction situation where the robot needs to cross and the traffic is very heavy, the robot's software can be programmed to make it be aggressive or conservative. It's up to the owner of the facility to tell us what they want the programming of their robots to be. If it's extremely busy and lots of traffic, the robot's going to sit there a long time. That's correct. But perhaps a person would as well, and if you want to make it more aggressive, you can. Any other questions? Go ahead. You.
Sorry, can I?
Yeah, sure.
Recently, I'm visiting many terminals in the world, and some terminals are applying auto truck, but not your company's technology.
No.
In China, in Southeast Asia, and I'm not a tech guy, so I may not understand well. But how is the difference, or your strengths, your technology's strengths compared with other technology company for autonomous trucks? Can you,
I can tell you a few things to start. We work in a couple of different places, one of which is Singapore. And so since I'm the CEO of the company, I'm in Singapore, we benchmark eastward to Westwell and UC, and we benchmark westward to Europe and so forth. We have the best performance. So I heard the discussion earlier today. Let me tell you, we are getting we work against production metrics, and we're hitting our production metrics. And the robot doesn't take all those breaks. They're much more effective. So basically, we are now almost at the level where we are equivalent to human productivity, if you all in. That takes a lot of software programming. And so my core strength compared to the competition is the enormous richness and rigor of our software program. We found it out of MIT. My top 4 tech guys were all trained by the leading roboticist there who invented autonomous vehicles, and I have a bunch of others she's training. So our strength is our just enormous intellectual horsepower, our mathematical approach. A lot of the stuff I showed you up there requires really deep math. We've got it. And that is what gives the nuance and the vigor of this system. So we can operate 24/7. We can operate in heavy rain. Nobody else can operate in heavy rain because we figured out how to do it. My CTO actually went to the physics of scattering, and he removes every single raindrop from the LiDAR path. So that kind of thing is what we can do. So I would say that. The other thing I would tell you is we've been working in ports for a while. And as I said, we've just gotten so much wisdom, and we've written that wisdom into algorithms. We want to be a software company. You know, our expertise, we have a lot of expertise in drive-by-wire and vehicle conversion and all that stuff. We don't care about it. We want to be a software company.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, thanks for the insightful presentation. You mentioned about the deployments you have ongoing. Can you share few insights or learnings of those, the transformation that you introduced to the terminals? What are the key findings you want to share with us today?
Well, I think I did to some degree. From my perspective, and this may sound trivial to you, but we as an autonomy company with our strength in all the autonomy software, we need a real partner who understands that their environment has to be mapped on a square meter by square meter way. And that the way they choose to operate their port or their facility, they have to tell us. Because all of that has to get written into the software. So right now, in the stage autonomy is in, it's a partnership between us and the terminal operator. We'll give you what you want, but you have to tell us in the level of detail that we can program the robot, who's very stupid, to do it. The second thing is that there is a lot of just operating experience. They're different from humans, and they're different from cars. When they're made, so I never want to see another retrofitted vehicle again, because they're literally taken apart like somebody did full body surgery to a human and opened their whole guts up and took out all their organs. So it's really important that we move to production grade soon. And that doesn't exist in today's world. So we need a strong maintenance department who can work with us, a strong operations department who can take these vehicles and actually make them work in a new way. I'll just say one last thing to you that isn't what you asked for, but what's fascinating is we're going to get humongous increases in effectiveness in a bunch of ways. We take the drivers out, right? I mean, the costs go way down. But in addition to that, once we go to a full robotic situation, we have a one process optimization situation. Just like a factory or a warehouse, but on the roads. So the productivity and the effectiveness that are going to happen when we have a one process thing are just really a lot. So this whole technology over the next 20 or 30 years, this is the best place. Your business of terminals, this is the best place for these robots because the value prop is really clear. We're going to save you money. So that's my best thing is you have to be sophisticated and you have to work with the autonomy provider because it's all in the details of the software. Anybody else? Back room?
Hi there. 2 questions, if I may. First of all, have your trucks had any incidents or crashes to date?
None that the robot was responsible for.
Okay, great, thanks. And have you converted any other port vehicles, or do you have any plans to convert any other port vehicles, such as cranes?
Well, no, we don't have any plans to convert the big cranes, but we have converted a number of others. We've done 16 different vehicle platforms from very small to very large. And frankly, this is the most difficult thing we've done. The others are much simpler. So we can do any vehicle, but it has to be a large enough fleet to make it worthwhile.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for the wonderful presentation. I'm Calvin. Perhaps I have 2 questions here. One is in regards to how do you balance in between operational efficiency towards safety? In the sense that normally if you are being too safe, that means that sometimes the operation efficiency could be slightly reduced and vice versa. And second question is that...
But one at a time.
Okay, sure.
So bingo, I'm sure you all heard his question, but it's a superb question. It's how do you balance productivity with safety? And the answer is in most cases, productivity and safety actually go along together, but sometimes they don't. And the answer is we work with our colleagues who own all this thing and they tell us what they care about. Right now in the beginning of this game with these robots, we focus on safety. As I said, they weigh 80 tons. Right? So safety first. For me, look, I'm a woman, I have kids, right? Safety first, safety first. However, we're also now focusing on production metrics because our safety numbers, touch wood, are still very good. So but you should know that most of the time they go hand in hand because reliability gives you both of that. Your other question.
Yeah, and maybe the last question is that in regards to safety, how do you benchmark your technology, like for example, the industrial norms and expectation, what kind of reference framework that you refer to in order to be compliant and to prove to the customer that you have reached an acceptable safety level?
We benchmark everything. We benchmark hours without an intervention or we went interventions per kilometer. We benchmark the production of how many containers we move per day. Frankly, we have, 100 different benchmarks that our tech guys look at. The data is quite deep. But what we focus on is the benchmarks that are important to the customer, which is productivity benchmarks of containers per day per vehicle, operating hours per day per vehicle, and interventions. I think we're kind of running out of time. I'll take one more. Thank you for your attention. And
can I ask?
Yeah, go.
Thank you. Thank you for your great presentation. Just one question. Do you have any limit or preference about the yard layout, vertical layout or horizontal layout for your autonomous truck? And if you don't have any limit, how about the backward? For example, vertical layout, right? Sometimes your truck should go backward, but as far as I understand, most of the sensors are forward. So as for the autonomous truck, backward is kind of some challenge. So I'd like to listen to your idea about it.
First of all, if a human can drive it, the robot can drive it.
Robert.
Right? If the vehicle can be driven to do something by a human, then we can program the robot to drive the vehicle that way. So in terms of layout, if it can be done by a human, it can be done by a robot. So some of the turns are pretty tight. You might have to back up, as you just said, but if the human can do it, we can do it. That's the first thing. The second thing is in the backup has a very bad reputation. It's doable. One of the companies is doing it. We're about to start it. We don't think it's going to take us more than a couple months to get the robot to back up. It backs up differently. When a trucker backs up their big truck, they jackknife, right? And they'd go that way. We're not going to do that. We're going to do something that's much more sophisticated and delicate. We don't want to do this. So we want to do something that's much more direct. But that's a myth. It's not that hard. Okay, listen, thank you so much. My colleague Stephen is here. My colleague Jord was here. She's definitely she's our lawyer. She's amazing. Anybody who wants withers. But anyway, thank you so much for your time.